This powwow grounds here is at the University Settlement at the base of Mount Beacon. Mount Beacon was named mostly because of the fact that during the Revolutionary War they had beacon fires up on top of the mountain to warn the colonists that the British were how they were moving up and down the rivers, and so that they could never really be surprised, because you can see for miles on top of that mountain. And that's basically how the Dutch people got all this land in the first place. Was back in the 1600s when the Dutch were coming up this way to buy land from the native people who lived here, the Wappingers. They climbed Rambout, climbed the top of Mount Beacon, and he's seen the entire 83,000 acres of the valley. And so therefore they actually lost it, because the Europeans actually would pass it on from generation to generation, where the Indians thought they were leasing it to them, and it would go back to them once something happened to Rambout. And something did happen to him. He died in the Hudson River during a storm, and so his daughter inherited all of this land. And there was a village, the main Wappinger village was not too far from here, on 82 and 52, where they come together. There's a plaque there now, on a big rock in the middle of the road that actually honors the native people. So all of this land was given to them, and she started the first, Madame Brett started the first mill here in the area, and she started on the Fishkill Creek. Her home is in Beacon, and it's still there, and you can it's open to the public from time to time. But Putnam County, which is really above the valley, but it's considered the Hudson Valley, but it's the higher part of the Hudson Valley. And there were 2 or 3 villages up there. There was one village in Kent, New York, on Lake Sagamore until I believe it was in the 1800s. There was a village there, and lately the lake had been flooded, so all of their artifacts, everything that was there was gone. It's under the water. He kept on trying to get his land back legally through the courts, but he couldn't do it. So when the Revolutionary War broke out, he thought he would get a better deal from the Americans than he did from the English. So he went to Boston, gave this very elaborate speech that you can find online, and he started to, when they came to free Boston from the British, he was there. He had his Wappingers there ready to fight, but there wasn't too much of a fight going on. Then when they moved more around, they kept on moving around, and they were considered, if you want to find out more about them, you can look up the Indian Company of 1778, because that's when George Washington decided to really use the Indians a lot more than he was. And he wanted to make a Minuteman type militia that could strike in a minute and get out of the way, and that's what he was doing. And that's what Chief Daniel Nim was a part of, and his son was the captain. They fought at the Battle of Saratoga, they fought at the Battle of Mammoth, some of them, but they got their demise in 1778 down in Van Cortlandt Park, where 37 Wappingers and 3 Stockbridges kept Colonel Simcoe and his Gagoons, or whatever you want to call them, Queen's Cobras at bay for over a week. But the British were stubborn. They wouldn't go around them. They had to get them. They could not go around them. So they stayed there until they were able to completely surround them. And he made a famous speech. He asked anybody that didn't want to stay. He told them that they could go, and they told him how to get out of there, and he did. A lot of the colonists did leave, but his Indians stayed there and fought very gallantly for a long time. And that's where he ended his life. After he shot Colonel Simcoe and got him dragged off of the horse, Colonel Simcoe's aide shot him, and he lay there in the dirt for a long time. But he was able to crawl to water. But that's when the colonists had dogs that they didn't feed very well, and the gruesome part is that they started feeding on all the dead bodies. So they were all put in a massive grave there at Van Cortlandt Park, dug up and moved because they wanted to put a flower garden, so, a greenhouse and everything in this area, so they moved them somewhere else. And we don't know exactly where. I'm sure that the city of Queens knows, but they're not saying. But this area right here, in history, it's one of the richest areas in the country for the Revolutionary War and for the French and Indian Wars. 1/3 of the American Revolution was fought right here. When I say, or when somebody says George Washington slept there, he did. He slept all over this area. So I mean, he had headquarters all up and down the Hudson on both sides, so he could, fight the British, and he did very well. There was a lot of volunteers that came from this area, and New York put in a lot of people, Pennsylvania put in a lot of people, New York and Massachusetts they were all over here fighting the French, fighting the British. So it was quite the area. All of this whole lower Hudson Valley is rich in so much culture, and it's getting lost. People are not knowing; they don't know who lived in their backyard, and that's the sad part. Some of them really don't even care. That's the real sad part, that they don't care. They figure they bought a piece of land and that's it; it's theirs. But they don't know who actually was on it before, who lived there before them. There may not be any title deeds, but at least the spirit of the native people is still in this valley, a lot, really a lot. And then the mountain singers are trying hardest to keep alive the spirit and the name of Daniel Ninham, because he was the last Wappinger war chief of the Wappinger people. And so we try to keep his name alive as much as we possibly can.
Well, that's a great story, and thank you very much,
You're
Bill
welcome.
Tarbox of the Ninham Mountains.
Mind of the river.